Boker Tov, everybody. So this week's parsha is Shmot, the beginning of the book of Exodus. And within this first chapter of the book, there's a lot that's happening. It really is Moses's origin story. But it's also in many ways, it's our people's origin story. Not the very beginning origin story, but in terms of what really made us a people. We went through the ringer. We were slaves in Egypt. This is the beginning of that story, and our path to redemption. Now, I want to talk for a minute about the moment that Moses was called into leadership, and that's the moment of the burning bush. Certainly, fire is on my mind right now as we are still dealing with the aftermath of the fires in LA. I think there are still some uncontained fires still burning, and it's been over a week. But I want to talk for a moment about what the significance is of God appearing to Moses in the form of a burning bush that is not consumed, right? I think at this moment, Moses has already gone through a lot. He was raised as royalty in the land of Egypt, and his eyes were finally opened to the plight of his people. And he killed a taskmaster and had to flee for his life because the Pharaoh, there would have been consequences for what he had done. So he fled to Midian, and he became a shepherd and got married, and that could have been the end of his story, right? He could have lived peacefully there in Midian as a shepherd. And about 40 years went by in that amount of time since he fled. 40 years, that's a considerable amount of time. And he needed the reminder of the plight of his people, right? The plight of the Israelites. And so God appeared to him in the form of a burning bush that was not consumed. Significance of this is, I think it shows us the duality of what fire can represent. Fire can represent a lot of really good things that are so important to us. We, as society, we rely on the warmth and the heat. We rely on the light in times of darkness. And, Hanukkah wasn't even that long ago. And that light during the time of darkness really inspired us during a dark season. Right. So we know it can be very uplifting. And yet we also know, here we see these fires in Los Angeles, we know how destructive fire can be. So it really reminds me of the duality also between Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Hatov, right? The evil and the good inclinations. And the sages teach us that it would be impossible to live life successfully without both. You do still need, we don't want to rely on Yetzer Hara, but it does still help us accomplish things in life sometimes. And of course, we need Yetzer Hatov to balance it out, right? So the fact that God appears to Moses in the form of a burning bush that's not consumed, it shows the light, the warmth, the inspiration of the fire, but not the destructive side, right? And that's what surprises him, because he knows that fire does destroy. A burning bush, you should see destruction. You should see it burning down into ash, and it doesn't. That surprise, that moment, and the voice calling him to action, to free our people, that is a very crucial moment that instructs him on what he needs to do, turns his life around and shows him that he's not done yet. He can't just go off and live peacefully in Midian. He needs to turn back. He needs to lead our people into freedom. And that's not an easy task to do. So the moment of that inspiration really needs to pull him towards his destiny and that of our people as well, because we relied on that leadership from him. If he hadn't done it, who would, right? So that moment of inspiration, all in that burning bush that is not consumed. Now, we don't really know, for all we know, it could still be burning, right? I think, we can take that imagery, we can take that inspiration forward with us, because even though we know that there's a destructive side to fire, we look to the light and the warmth and the inspiration that it provides. And in doing so, it guides us forward, and hopefully any of the destruction that we see from fire can be rebuilt.